on. Anyway, so before, without much ado, all of you are here to hear about React on Rails, and it's pretty. I think it's a pretty interesting story, and it's becoming very, very topical. Okay, so kind of told you a little about me here. I did go to Pali High, so I do have some legitimate experience here in LA, and I actually do have quite a bit of family. They all still love LA. They love the motion picture industry, entertainment, the restaurants and everything, and I will admit it, I love telecommunications in LA. And if any of you want to learn about that stuff, definitely get in touch with me. Okay, so why add React to a Rails project? How many of you have been through a project with some jQuery, some CoffeeScript, and you decide, hey, it's about time we put in some React, right? Probably all of you here, right? Okay. So this is what happened. 2014, one of my consulting clients, we wanted to build an interactive dashboard. They're actually still a client of mine, the drone. The guy's funny because I kind of developed the concepts for React on Rails working on stuff, and he wanted me to list it on my open source page. I said, okay, sure. So when this project came about, I was like, okay, done tons and tons of stuff with CoffeeScript and all that Rails UJS stuff, etc. And it was like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. And you know, Ember had come out, so I heard about Ember. Was looking into that quite a bit. The other thing I wanted to look at is Angular was getting pretty popular. Took a look at that. And then a friend of mine, this is actually the true story, this guy, Bo Hartshorn, he actually is a Facebook alumni / retiree, because he started there pretty early in the days of Facebook. He's staying at one of my guest apartments, and got to be good friends with him. And he said, hey, you should check out React. Check out this guy, pretty cool. Didn't really think much of it. And then watched 2 videos on React. I'm not sure, how many of you have seen these videos from Pete Hunt? If you've seen these videos from Pete Hunt, it's like, I don't even want to try to explain to you why you would pick React over Angular or the other stuff. It's just so obvious. All of you agree? All of you are already on React? Okay. So it's just like, by the way, if you're not, I was just on the Ruby Rogues, came out just like a week ago or a couple weeks ago, and one of the guys that's interviewing me is Jason Sweat, and he's does Angular on Rails, like literally, like that's his business. But his business is Angular on Rails. It's just kind of coaching on that. We've got something much better than that, because we get the full-on gem nowadays with React on Rails. And in the talk, there's a lot of talk about, oh, why React and all this stuff, and single flow of data and all that stuff. I'm not going to bore you with all that, because you're already here. I'm not going to bore you with these details here, but why React inside of a Rails app. One of the big things about what we do, especially with React on Rails, is that it is not an all or nothing thing going with React versus your Rails app. In fact, I think it's just the ultimate combination. You have some pages in your app, and you want it to be interactive. You want all this good stuff, and you know this is the places where it matters, and you put more engineering time into it. And then you got stuff like your back end. Every app, I think enterprise app, commercial app, etc. You've got to have like, what does your staff use to check on the data, help people out, etc. Yeah, some of that stuff. Who cares if it's not a native React part? It's even better than just saying you can mix and match it in the app. One of the things we developed in React on Rails, you'll see, is that you can have a header. This is one of my favorite features. Your header can be React. The body of your app can be either React or regular Rails, and they can communicate through a Redux store, and it just works straight out of the box from React on Rails. So that means you have your header, it can be like dynamic, talking to the server, blah, 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 displaying notifications, and boom, you hit this one link in your header, you're playing Rails up, down, below. All right. So, how many of you heard the React Rails gem? Okay, pretty much everybody here. When I first wanted to try out React, I got on the React Rails gem actually earlier in my career before I formed ShakaCode. I created a blog called RailsOnMaui and started making some screencasts. It's actually all the work that you do to sharing your knowledge with the world, it really literally comes back to you. I mean, I'm not going to say it's like I just do it because it's a nice thing to do, but it literally does come back to you. And that's how I found my whole team, is just putting stuff out there in the world. So anyway, one of the things I did was I did make a video tutorial for React Rails and going through it. So you watching, Scott?
Yeah, cool.
Scott's actually been to my place in Maui. Scott, how was it?
Fantastic. I found you through Maui.
We have a picture of Scott with a roof deck on there. Pretty cool spot.
Ocean in the background.
No. Anyway, so we did that. So we had this. So we do this stuff, and the problem was that, and I didn't even know it was that big of a problem, because at the time, okay, so this is back, 2014, how common was it to use NPM for JavaScript inside a Rails project? Not that common at all, I don't think. How common was it to find some of your JavaScript inside of a Ruby gem, like, jQuery Rails, right? A lot of people use that stuff, right? Now, then you realize, okay, there's some other open source stuff you want, and what do you use, like Bower, or I don't know, all that other stuff, right? It was not convenient at all. So what people mostly do, copy the JavaScript in your Rails project. Not good. So the problem with the React Rails gem, the whole thing about this is that you end up using the asset pipeline. It's all based on the asset pipeline. So what it came down to was that it was a nightmare going, okay, literally I do remember exactly the thing I ran into. I wanted to use the React Bootstrap gem, not gem, NPM package. So you go out there and you go, well, I want to find some open source to do. So great, so how do I do that? Well, there's no gem that puts it in there. I don't know what to do now, literally. Didn't know what to do. And then I started reading around, and one of referrals from Bo's, this guy Pete Hunt, Bo introduced me to Pete Hunt, so I'm talking to Pete Hunt. He goes, yeah, try out Webpack. Google around, found someone who'd written one article on how to put Webpack together with Rails. So then I did a lot of work, and I figured it out and wrote this article. And this actually got a lot of traction. How many of you ever saw this article or helped you kind of get React in this? So, John, I know you guys are using Webpack. I guarantee your developers saw this article.
I'm sure they did. We use exactly that description.
So this was cool. So this helped me out with the client project. And not only did I make the article, but I made an open source example that clearly showed how to do all this stuff. It's if you go reactrails.com, it actually is a live running version of Roku. The example is React. I think it's a React Webpack Rails tutorial, and that's the GitHub thing. It was doing pretty well. So, getting a whole lot of stars, a lot of traffic, and that was cool. So I had this great technique, great article, but that was it, just a technique in an article. So I'm talking to other people in the community that are doing React and Rails stuff, and then they said the issue was that how do you do server rendering with the thing I did? So what I did was I figured out how to get Webpack into the Rails app, how to set up the scripts, how to set up the deployment on Roku, but it was an enterprise type app where you had to log in. We were not worried about server rendering and SEO. And now there's even other reasons why you might do the server rendering stuff, but mainly like the SEO angle. So what we did was I had some just template code that would just, sense that you had this component on the page, by the way the page did, it run some code and basically bootstrap loading this component. Okay, so not doing the server rendering stuff. So then, how are we going to do, so I was like, okay. A bunch of people I know, they're not going to use the technique I did because I had no server rendering. I go, there's no way I'm going to use the asset pipeline thing of the React Rails gem. So I took a look at the source code, and just like the story that React Router came from the router in Ember, I looked at how React Rails did server rendering. It's like, okay, read the code. It's unbelievable the amount of knowledge you can get by reading open source code. Like, I think it's one of the differences between newbies and advanced developers. Advanced developers read the code. You just never know about the docs. Anyway, and sometimes you just want to do something on your own. So I read the code and figured it, and then so it was like, okay. Actually, the true story was that the very first, one of the early engineers I hired, I said, hey, let's pair together and try to figure this thing out. This guy Samnon Chun, I had my back in engineering, and he did that and we did that. It was like literally the very beginnings of the jam. You guys already know, so I'll skip through a couple slides. Why do you use NPM? Does everybody here know why you use NPM.js? Basically, the NPM.js is Ruby gems for JavaScript, except it's probably like 30 times, probably 100 times as big now, I bet. This is one of my favorite pictures I put in this article about, back to this article about why I thought that the old way really sucked, which was, get off CoffeeScript here. I used to love doing the CoffeeScript, and then once ES6 came along, I was like, okay, well, I'm sold. So the other thing is once you do finally get on all full-on NPM, you realize that if you do not do a really good Google search for anything you want to do, you are being very, very foolish. I think all of us know that, because there's no worse feeling than you spent like 3 days doing something and another developer comes over here and goes, hey, Google this. And you realize, oh. Okay, so I kind of mentioned here, so server rendering was the first real reason why I came up with the React Rails gem. The other thing about the React Rails gem is that in the community for React on Rails is I wanted to make it so that it's omakase for doing JavaScript apps, because as some of you heard everyone talk about JavaScript fatigue. Okay, well, if you kind of work with my company, ShakaCode, it's like we do the research for you, so you don't have to spend days and days or months doing it. So you get on board with this stuff, and well, it's just pretty easy. Have any of you ever here been using React on Rails? Just curious. Kind of living up to that? I wrote an article about it because David wrote the article, the Rails Doctrine, and I wrote an article, the React on Rails Doctrine. It kind of shows how it fits in there. So part of the omakase thing is I wanted to integrate what we think are the best practices, which is React Router and Redux. I think we made those choices early on, and just like the choice of Webpack early on, we pretty much turned out to be 100% right in terms of community momentum, and I was pretty stoked on that. One of the other things I think we did was pretty cool, I chose to do early on, was took the JavaScript part of React on Rails, and I made an NPM package. And that actually, so we use all of our ES6 type stuff for React on the actual JavaScript code and React to Rails. Interesting fact, the actual React on Rails NPM part is used by projects for Python and PHP in terms of how it gets bootstrapped. As of, I think it was today, we're 2167 stars. That's kind of my little, I told my friends, don't work in tech. It's like 20,000 Instagram followers, Bash, So let's see what else here. Good stuff. Okay, so there's so here's kind of the basic gist of how it works. For React on Rails is that everything is underneath one directory called client that's all your JavaScript. So if you had all your JavaScript, say, in a separate GitHub repo, it would just literally go right back underneath the client directory, and then, well, you're using one repo and not two. So let's see what else here. The other thing too that's not actually, I don't talk about, so why do you use, why do you want to do your JavaScript the JavaScript way? It's not like React, it's not like the library, but it's all the tooling, even besides Webpack. Especially ESLint, Flow, and the CSS modules, which you get through using Webpack. And how many of you use CSS modules? It is unbelievable how nice it is to use CSS modules once you start using it. Because it's just, you realize, oh my gosh, I need to move something over 5 pixels, and now I got to figure out what is the right CSS selectivity, get this one little thing move over 5 pixels versus just saying, here's a class, move over 5 pixels, done. And you don't end up with some Frankenstein mess of CSS. I know we've all seen that. Okay, so a couple other things, React on Rails. So what does it do? Should put a graphic in here for this. What it does is we use Webpack and we create essentially a JavaScript file. And that goes right into the asset pipeline, and that's it. It says, we don't change the asset pipeline to compile ES6, etc. We just go right into there. And we just we use Webpack and the other tooling, we make we might make a few files actually if we're doing a more advanced app. We have a really nice basic tutorial here. What I want to do is, I actually was demoing, kind of getting ready for this, doing the demo of this thing, installing and stuff like that, or even I did a recording of it without me talking. I actually just did a video on doing this. It'll take less than like 3.5 minutes. You might have to play it, and you'll see exactly what it does. Let's see if this goes all right. Why is it?
Way for me to show you what React on Rails is all about is let me show you.
Is there a way I can turn the volume up? Okay. Who can help us with the shaking?
Well, it's California. I think
No,
that's just,
it's
I think
not
that's just the
California.
USGS. It's the wall. It's actually shaking.
No,
It seems like the AC must have started.
no, it started shaking when I switched from Keynote. And now Keynote is shaking. I know, it's so hard to.
Yeah, it's probably the AC.
You think it's the AC kicked on?
Yeah.
I think I did hear the AC just kick on too. And it's, what do you all want to do?
Just play.
Say it. We're doing live.
I know, it's, okay, I guess, is that as loud as it'll go too? Does anybody have no? Does it go off the audio?
I think it might have been loud enough.
Yeah, we
It
can.
was loud enough? Okay. Cool. Let's get the show on the road.
Our tutorial. So I'm going to walk through these tutorial steps. You can find them here on GitHub. And we're going to take a look through what happens when we run the tutorial. It's a really great way to understand everything that's going on in React on Rails. So the very first steps in the tutorial are going to be making sure your node environment is set up correctly. Then we'll make sure our Ruby environment is set up correctly. Then we're going to install Rails. We'll make sure we got the right Rails version. We're going to create a new Rails app. We'll CD into the Rails app directory. We're going to create a GitHub repository, and we're going to commit everything because we want to make sure that when we run the generator, we can see exactly the changes. We're adding gem React on Rails to our gem file. After we do this, we're going to need run bundle. We're going to git commit this. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to run the generator. Here's the help for the generator. The main option you're going to want to pay attention is the Redux option. So great, we ran the generator. Boom, bundle, you gotta run bundle and you gotta run npmi afterwards. This is going to install all the libraries that React on Rails needs. It's quite a few. Here are the files that we created. Great, we started up the app. Here we go. This is hello world. It creates this. Wow, it was that easy. This app is created. So you notice here it's a real JavaScript app. It's you type something and this page is reflecting it on the immediately in two places. You can go take a look at the elements there. When you look at the elements, what you're going to see is the actual HTML that's generated by the JavaScript. This HTML is not in your app. It's not in your, say it's not in your Rails app. It's not coming to the page. In terms of the page source, this is all dynamically generated HTML from the JavaScript library React. So what are we actually setting the browser? Let's take a look at the source code for doing this. So if we take a look at the source code, scroll down, we got some data on the page that's used for generating the component, and we have the component that is there, and it's just one little line right there that shows you that's just what you're going to see. And so if we take a look here, we'll take a look at the layout here, excuse me, the view, and we can actually turn this over on the true. So we'll go turn this to true, and let's just see what happens in the source that we generate. So this is returning a pre-rendered server, which is server rendering. So if we view the page source now, we actually generated the HTML. So you may be wondering, what is a server rendering business? Why do you want to generate that HTML on the server side? There's some reasons you might want to do this for SEO and maybe for performance, but it depends. You're taking performance of the client side app and you're putting it on the server side. So there you go. Over on the right-hand side, you can see what's there is the part that is, really simple. It's just one line. The React component. That's what we send to the browser. What you see on the left-hand side is a server render. Hi, this is Justin. Thank you for watching my video, which gave you an overview of my.
All right. Hey, we're 100% self-funded, and I'm hustling. So, not going to be shy about that. I've seen too many, I spent my whole life working for venture-backed companies, and I don't know, some of them might not let me work from Maui, so I want to be self-funded. So that's the, thanks for putting up with that. The big thing about nowadays, actually, this is like JavaScript. This is just like the last few weeks, everybody's moving to Yarn. And Yarn saves a lot of time on NPM install. It's really painful demoing this if I wait for the NPM install. It's like you ever demo something when you're waiting for like your Ruby gems to download. It's like, oh, this is like how it slows down. And so that's why it's I've actually presented RailsConf. This is like a critical tip. If you ever do give a presentation, never code in front of an audience. Always screencast, record it, and then you can stop and start it. So, what I want to show you is, so what I've got here is the code that was generated right here. And it's actually, this is live here. Man, it's too small for us to see that. Yeah.
Perfect.
Actually, yeah, I should just probably reduce, you know what? Let's see if we do scale and a little easier for everyone to see. I should have done that actually a long time ago, probably. Okay. By the way, time check. How much time do you want me to spend? You guys having fun? Is this interesting?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, great. By the way, so so hello, LA, Ruby. Do you guys ever you guys know who Jack Ma is? The guy Alibaba?
Yeah.
Jack Ma. Okay, this is Justin. ShakaCode, yeah. Come on. I'll be like my thing. So we've got this going. So this is it here. So I mean, really, the real advantage of me coming out here. So obviously, you can ask questions about what we've got. What I wanted to show you here is that I've got this app's actually running. Let's see. So what I did was right here. Here's all the stuff that ran in the terminal. Blah blah blah. And I did all that stuff. It's a bunch of stuff, and it was really a work with a lot of people to get that to work. I mean, you think about you just run this one command and like, boom, you got Webpack running in your Rails app, and you're set up and going. So here I got making sure that some money running right now. Okay, so basically we start this stuff off with a foreman task. The reason why we started up with a foreman task is because there's a couple different processes that they typically run. You'll have your Rails process running server, and we'll have one or more Webpack processes that are going to be generating the JavaScript files. So now this app is up and running right here, and so this app actually, even though it wasn't running, it was running because the client-side stuff was running. There's no server-side really part of this other than obviously if I refresh this page here, it says hello stranger. That's the thing I think that gets installed and installed the app. And yeah, so LA Ruby. Woohoo. How do I do that? Anyway, one thing I was going to show you is like, well, this is like my screens are like really good. Screen change resolution. Search for, this is the way you do stuff here. Like, so I search for hello world. I'm going to just change that so you see hello world. Okay. So this works. Okay. This is the React component. Change something and say hello to it. So say you want to change something to JavaScript. Yeah, so here it is. This is our JSX code. Right? That's what it looks like. So let's just change, say hello to, what should I change? Say, tell me what I should change this to. The label. Anything. What? Like that?
Makes nonsense.
Okay. Okay. So there it goes. We're not doing hot reloading. Hot reloading would be, and React on Rails actually does support hot reloading. One thing I've learned about when I'm giving an explanation of React on Rails is don't tell everybody everything. There's way too much stuff in there. And also when you're getting started out in React on Rails, don't try to get the hot reloading set up because it's just one more thing that you might fat finger something and not get it up and running. So always make little baby steps on whatever you're doing. In fact, I've just set us up on media, right here on Shock. Ooh, oops, I did not connect to, wow. Can someone give me the Wi-Fi password here? Oh, there's a lot of Wi-Fi up here. Right there, Stack Commerce. All over here. Stack off. Questions? Yeah, questions. By the way, I feel bad. I've been talking too much. Yeah, let's get some. By the way, let me just finish that up. The thing I just changed there, the poppycock thing. Right there. So I go over here and I hit refresh on. So I got to hit refresh on the page. So what happened is that if we have hot reloading running, and I actually have it set up so I could just flip over to a different app and it is running, when you save, it updates the page. And this is not live reload, or live reload actually causes your browser to refresh. It's a WebSocket connection to the browser. It's kind of wired up through React. And the way it works is we run a separate Webpack dev server to actually create the code that creates your JavaScript file that gets loaded in the browser. It's all follow the recipe and it just works. You don't have to understand. Right?
So essentially, based on your knowledge right now, it just kind of re-renders the application entirely, right? It just doesn't reload the browser, it just kind of re-renders the entire app.
It's something you use during development. It just re-renders a page that's visible.
Oh,
Can you speak to, like, because I just started getting into this recently in the last month or so, and so, how does a virtual DOM work with this RESTful operation? Because that's the confusing part for me, because the virtual DOM is
RESTful.
taking, yeah.
You mean like you're going to be doing asynchronous type stuff? You're making API calls?
Okay,
You're talking about a REST server?
yeah.
Like an API server? Okay. Okay, so first of all, the question sort of isn't correctly phrased. Okay, so the virtual DOM is a implementation detail of React.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the virtual DOM is that regular old DOM development with jQuery is like you find stuff in the DOM and you manipulate it, you move it around. And every time you do that, it's a slow operation in the browser. So if you end up doing it a lot, things slow down. So what happens in React is this whole idea of unidirectional data flow. You set up some data, you've got some components that will be composed of other components, they'll get the data, they render to the virtual DOM, and then when React is ready, it goes poof, and then it renders. And then so it's the virtual DOM has absolutely nothing to do with RESTful API stuff, and nothing to do with API stuff. That's a whole, like, when you start getting involved with Redux, that's where you start getting involved with asynchronous operations and how do you handle it, and stuff like Redux Saga versus Thunk, etc. So all you need to know about React is that you have some data. It's like, basically like a JSON file, and then here's a bunch of code that says turns that into HTML.
Okay,
Redux is
so,
the part where it's actually saving the changes back to the server.
Redux is where you maintain your state.
Redux is just the exactly. It's just maintenance of the state. It interacts with all your API calls, for example. Like a very common thing which you'll do when you have a remote call is that you'll make a remote call and you'll set a fetching flag. We call it like usually is fetching. And we'll set some part of our store says is fetching. And when something's fetching, you display a busy cursor on the screen. And I will be changing the state of the store when the is fetching happens. And when that remote call comes back, I'm not really worried. I have some code that's going to handle getting that remote call, and the store is going to get updated. And when the store gets updated, what happens is that the React components will be notified of the new set of data to render.
it's the diff method that's basically that's like making sure that the thing that's been rendered in the DOM is exactly the same, and then will get updated in the component.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
interesting to see
Yeah.
like where that component is going to get re-rendered and how that asset pipeline is going to be touched in doing
There's like, it's not Justin will disagree with me, it's not like a way you can psychologically map with it is almost to think of React as the V, and we're not dealing with the M and the C at all. That's something else.
Yeah, that's totally correct.
Yeah.
So if you want to think of it as, if you're thinking that way, none of those issues matter at all to
Right.
React development, period. You could, in theory, you don't have to use Redux. In theory, you could use some of your jQuery construct. It does all your REST operations, make your JSON, and you just pass it to a React component that renders it in the view.
Right.
It makes no difference. They're best practices.
Right, that's maybe what I'm asking as
You know,
well.
like, so,
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, I really think that the work that I've done with the community in terms of the discussions, you can literally see discussions in some of the pull requests that we get into about figuring out the best practices for how to do all this. And if you can, like in the stuff that even goes on internally in my company, there's stuff that's way beyond tutorial level in terms of real production app. And this is the stuff we apply to all of our clients. And plus we get in, we work with our clients, and we're just constantly improving. The stuff literally changes every day. You had a question in the back?
Yeah, Justin.
Okay.
So the state itself contains the data, and it changes all the time. But then when it talks to the Rails controller and the server and the database and the Rails application, how does that data in state in Redux or just in React itself get transferred over to your database on the server side?
Yeah, so what you're asking is going to be quite a bit beyond the scope of, so let me give you, show you this. So if you go to reactrails.com, this is the, it's really, you just need to go here and there's a bunch of links on there that you can go to. So you go to reactrails.com, and on here, this is Rails stuff, and any of you could like go to this page right now and type something in, and this gets refreshed every 60 seconds on my screen. And it's like a little kind of mini microblog. It's kind of a silly example. It just shows doing an input form in the 3 different ways we trigger Bootstrap. But it's a good example of like, hey, this is like, real JavaScript what's going on. It also shows off, this is React Router. See this comments indicator here? What we've got here is we've got a React header and we've got a Rails or React body. And for example, this classic Rails thing, this was generated with scaffolding. And notice here the little number there went away because when this came up, it's because of the way the code's written there, it couldn't actually be connected to it, but this is the actual JSX at the top. So, so as I load up these different pages here, this is a real React on Rails app here using React Router stuff. So like the React Router demo here, you can test like go to this React Router page, is React Router's working, blah, blah, blah. So the questions you're asking me about, like, doing this asynchronous stuff, what you do is you go to the open source example for this. And I actually have this running, and I was thinking before I was going to come over here and do this talk, I was like, oh god, this is like way, way too complicated, like, to go into, like, just like the talk. I'm actually starting next week, I'm going to do an egghead. Those guys approached me, same guys that did Read-Up, the guy Dan, those guys reached out to me. Anyways, I want to reach out to you for 2 reasons. One is, you might want to hire you guys, because we're doing like this on Webpack stuff and whatever, so maybe give them some coaching stuff. That's one thing that we do, is we do this coaching thing where we set teams up with a private Slack room, and all my engineers have access, and literally 24/7, you ask a question in there, you'll get a real quick answer. So we do that for a $1,500 fee, and it's like lasts like at least 6 months of help. Limited in numbers of hours and stuff we can spend with you. But for most of the teams that have done that, it just kind of lasts forever, and they've gotten a lot out of it. And some of those people that signed us up for coaching eventually have us do some of the coding as well. So one of the things we do when we do the coaching a lot, the reason why the time goes so far, is when someone asks us a question, we just point them to the exact perfect line in the examples we've written. Just here, just follow this recipe right here. Save somebody the time to poke around and figure it out. You have a question, Scott?
Yeah, so one of the problems that I've been having, because I've mostly done Rails development when it comes to bigger projects, and Rails is very clear about how you're supposed to lay things out, right? Like
Yeah.
convention for how the app should be laid out. And in diving into React, I found that one of the things that I struggle most with is that I haven't been able to find a strong convention for how you should lay things out. And so when I dive into this example app, for example, and I start going in there to play around with the React, there's like stores and there's actions and there's like all these different things. And so I'm kind of curious if you have any suggested places or resources to go to just kind of read about more of a hierarchical, like how do you lay this out and why is it laid out in such a way?
Well, there's so many different layers to this onion, okay?
I feel
So,
that's
first of all, not only are there layers to the onion, the fashionable thing today may not be the fashionable thing tomorrow. So I'm going to tell you, like, latest off the press sort of thing right now is that there's 2 things. One of them is this thing that's stories that one of my engineers has put together, and he's got this idea for how to lay out the stuff, which is going to be different than the way that we actually have it in the current examples. This came out last week, and this is related to I don't know if you put it in here. There's even there's debate among my own. I let my engineers spend a lot of time actually debating stuff with each other because I just think they have a lot of fun doing that, so I don't want to ruin their fun. But there's something called Redux, Dux, that is another thing that we're actually looking into, starting to follow this. This is literally, very, very, quite new. So we're looking into this, and we might actually change some of the examples around in terms of how we actually structure the code, in terms of which folders we put the stuff in. By the way, so all this discussion about like the React and setup of that and how you use Redux, it really is completely way like separate than React on Rails. The one thing I'll say though is if you're using all this open source stuff, we're like, you know, the way to do it, not the regular React Rails, because then you're dealing with the asset pipeline. So anyway, I was telling you, the AKIT guy said to me that they're probably gonna, you know, I said, well, do you want me to like do any video or like how to use React Rails for like the really simple case? He goes, why would you teach the wrong case? That was like what he said. He goes, that thing's outdated. So anyway, what I did was, you know, so over here, you know, one of the things I could kind of just, you know, briefly describe to you all is just kind of what happened after we ran the generator. What exactly, how does a directory structure work in terms of what React on Rails does? Is that of interest to people that kind of, it's actually, it's really not that complicated. Do you guys want to see that?
Sure.
What happens? Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through this stuff, just, I'm just going to hit a few of the highlights. So one of the things is we create a directory called Webpack. It really could be configured however you like it, and we put generated files in there. We also modify the application JS file there, and you see this React require Webpack bundle. So this is requiring the stuff. This basically just puts whatever Webpack generated into your app. We don't do any style sheet stuff. Tell you a little bit about the history of the generator. We originally did very ambitiously a lot of the stuff. The problem is that the stuff kept changing so fast. It was like, okay, we can't maintain this, and it was really hard to get new people onboarded. Nowadays, it is super simple and super clean to get up and running with literally the Hello World app, which is not necessarily how you would structure your React to be a production app, but it's great for getting a newbie set up. So outside of that directory, a few things in your assets directory, everything happens in your client directory. This is a directory that won't exist before. The app directory here, that contains your JavaScript code. Node modules is something that NPM does, and notice that this is, if any of you use RubyMine, you want to make sure that you mark directory as excluded, because if RubyMine starts indexing your NPM JS directory or node modules directory, you're going to be in a world of pain.
There's tons of stuff like
Tons, yeah. It will be indexing forever. Then Babel is a default for Babel. Babel is the stuff that converts to ES6. All this stuff, a lot of it you can find templates off of. You don't have to understand every single thing. Your package JSON file, this contains two main things. One is some critical scripts that are necessary for React on Rails to run. And the main thing is how do you build your files for test production and development. And these are the commands right here that do it. Just run Webpack. And then so you're saying run Webpack. Everything about running Webpack will be in your Webpack config. Yeah, good question. Yeah, by the way, interrupt me anytime if I'm interested.
What do you use for testing by default?
Well, okay, again, there's different layers to the onion of testing. So, to be honest with you, so we use like Mocha, something like that, I think, for our JavaScript test. I don't think we don't do a very good job with our JavaScript testing. We do some of it, we do some of it, we don't. We do very little view testing. But what we do a lot of is capybara testing. What?
What is that?
Capybara is integration test.
Okay.
Is making sure that what we want the users to see is actually happening. It is painful at times, making sure it all works. It is fragile at times, but it is by far better than hiring a team of people to manually test your app for every release. So,
touching on that topic you mentioned, I understand Rails has a set of tools for testing in particular, but JavaScript also has its own kind of set of tools.
yeah.
In a situation where you have a JavaScript app in your client directory, would you still use your Rails test folder or spec folder for our spec, whatever, to test your JavaScript, or would you do it all inside your client directory?
Absolutely, you would do it all inside your client directory. If you look at the more advanced example we have, it's all inside the client directory. Basically, here's like another thing about the way we structure React on Rails, is that you can have some JavaScript developers that don't do any Rails work. They can open up the client directory with WebStorm, a JavaScript editor, or Atom, whatever, and they're just not dealing with anything to do with Rails. They're just in their directory, and they're happy. So that's here's the Webpack config here. There's a couple. By the way, how much more time? I kind of feel like I should.
Let's wrap it up in about. I don't want to cut you off, so
No.
maybe touch on like the 4 minutes.
Yeah, let's just kind of. By the way, so I mean, there's just a ton of stuff. The main point is this: you got to get everything goes in the client directory. There's a Ruby config file where you set up a few things. What's in the Ruby config file, which is React on Rails RB right here. You have to tell your config file that your file is going to be, the server bundle file, for example, for server range. You just have to connect up a few things. That's going to have to connect with your Webpack file, for example. So there's a few little things that have to be connected. But, Ruby config file will have to be coordinated with your Webpack file. Everything's in your Webpack directory. It really pretty much just works. I got a couple, just finishing little slides here. I wanted to kind of tell you, but let's see. Oh, this is helpful. Let me, sorry. Go. That's for break projector. Sorry. Okay. So getting started. I'll post where all these slides are. Here's a couple quick links. There's a ton of stuff out there. Definitely this thing here, go to the reactrails.com. That was the site I showed you, and there's links to pretty much everything there. By the way, we're actually, the project is about to start is that we're going to put a React Native app inside that repo, and it'll be leveraging the same server and some of the same JavaScript code. Kind of cool. Here's friendsandguests.com. It's a screen grab of it. Kind of looks like Airbnb, except it's got a whole bunch of stuff that's different. We've got here. This is one of my clients. This is a client I've been with since 2011. My company's done everything in their software except for we work with their CTO. So that's I'm really proud of this app. They are basically going there and get your photos taken and come out of there and they're on their phone. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes through that. We have Jacob here from Spylight. Incredibly pleased. Jacob hired us to do our first major React Native app. He found us through React on Rails. And Jacob, why did you hire us?
Mainly was just looking to find something through the open source community of had a very short timeline for finding people, and it seemed like the best way to quickly vet what someone had built or what a group had built. So
they seem like they're super stoked. Jacob actually showed up tonight. He wouldn't have showed up, I think, if he wasn't stoked. So I'm really stoked. I actually showed a couple of you the app running on my phone. They're like, whoa, this is pretty good. So I'm pretty stoked on that. If anybody wants more help, I'm super easy to get in touch with. I'm like the most loose private person in the world. Justin at ShakaCode.com. And so anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening.